struggling to market to your ideal clientele with old branding that worked for you years ago? This branding gap is playing a huge role in your current client conversion rate, and you may not even know it. We've heard it all before. My website doesn't matter that much, or I'll get to it eventually, but years go by and yet you're still asking the same question. Why am I still working the same weddings at the same price point with no growth? So what does your current brand and website say about you? Does your copy actually captivate your ideal clientele, or are they quickly closing your site and connecting with someone else? It's time to give your brand some pampering at the Creative Cabana, your all-inclusive strategy and design studio. With over a decade of experience as wedding vendors, their full-service team knows exactly how powerful great branding can be for your business growth. Whether you need a complete brand refresh or just a touch-up with services like website design, brand identity, or copywriting, they've got you covered. And for filmmakers out there, they also specialize in logo animations so that your film can feel that much more elevated. This is something I just invested in, and it's brought an entirely new look to my films. So you poured your heart and soul into your business. Now it's time for a brand that connects with your customers on every level. Visit their website today and use our discount code WGY300 for $300 off your first project at creativecabana.co. Welcome to the We Got You podcast, a network curated for wedding photographers and filmmakers that dives deep into the strategies and tactics to transitioning a side hustle in the wedding industry into a full-time, thriving career. We're your hosts, luxury wedding filmmaker Emma K. Films and luxury destination wedding photographer Hannah Brook Photography. It wasn't too long ago that we picked up our cameras for the first time, having absolutely no idea where it would lead us. Years later, we're traveling the globe for beautiful destination weddings, build our dream lifestyles, and run multi-six-figure careers. It didn't happen overnight and it wasn't easy, but it is attainable and so worth it. And we're ready to teach you our strategies. Covering a variety of topics from both our firsthand experiences and reputable guest speakers' insights crucial for business growth, we're exploring the art of marketing within your niche, discussing effective ways to attract and retain clients, leverage social media, and build a strong online presence, and so much more. We're not shying away from talking through the challenges of the wedding industry and offering realistic solutions to navigate them successfully. We emphasize the importance of networking, establishing meaningful relationships with clients, and continuously honing one's craft to stand out in a competitive market. This is the We Got You podcast.
Hello. Welcome to another episode on the We Got You podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about how to be true to yourself in an industry full of fads. And we are so excited to be joined by an incredibly talented destination wedding photographer who is also my own wedding photographer, Beba Vowels. How are you doing today, Beba?
I am so good. I truly am so honored to be here, and I love doing podcasts, and it's even more fun because I literally shot your wedding, so we're friends. So it's even more fun. It's a great day.
Yeah, we're so grateful that you're here because you literally had a baby a couple of weeks ago, so not too long ago, and just so grateful that you made time to even be on the podcast. And then just with your experience and everything of, shooting high profile clients, having celebrity clients, photographing all over the world and everything, we really could not think of anybody better to be on today's episode than to have you. And we're just really, again, grateful that you made the time as a new mom and everything to join us. So before we jump into the episode and the topic of having an industry that's full of fads, we'd really just love for you to dive into a little bit about yourself, just for anyone who's listening who might not follow you yet. If you're not following Beba, go follow her right now. But just kind of walk us through your journey and what led you to where you are now.
Yeah. So many things. First off, I am my photography work is based in California. We're currently living in Hawaii, but we own a home in Kansas City, so we're going back there this fall, kind of all over the place. But my photography business is based in California. That's where I do the majority of my work, and then also destination stuff. Mostly international. I don't do a ton of mainland weddings anymore, outside of California. But yeah, I started in 2017, I think. So I don't know how many years that's been. Time is flying. We were just talking about her wedding was 3.5 years ago, which is insane.
Crazy.
So crazy. So yeah, I've been doing this for a good bit now. I started out as a wedding and couple photographer, and then I at one point kind of like went away from that and was doing only brands and like education type stuff. And then I kind of found my love for weddings again. So I fell back into it. And now I have a team in California that is like kind of the main, like my main thing right now is working on growing my team and yeah, shooting weddings. I love doing it. And then I also do still do some brand work here and there on my personal page, which is a lot of fun. And yeah, like you said, I just had a baby a little bit ago. We were actually supposed to record a podcast like the day after I went into labor. So very fresh. But yeah, I have a newborn son right now. His name is Rocco. And then obviously my husband, Bo, he works with me full time as well, which is super fun. And we love shooting weddings together. I mean, I think doing anything with your husband is just makes it way more fun, but especially shooting weddings is just, we have a lot of fun doing it together. So, yeah, I feel like that's kind of a quick rundown, but if I missed anything, let me know. I don't know.
Well, no, I was like, you do it all. So I'm like, I'm sure there's just like so much to think of, but I was like, you do it all. We met first when it was like at one of your like content days, like workshops and everything in California, which was so incredible. Still like one of my favorites to date and everything. And just wish I could live in California too. So you're like living the best life, Hawaii, Kansas, California. Do you still do a lot of, do you still do a lot of education, or are you kind of like honed into weddings right now, or?
I go through big phases with my business. Like some phases I'm like all about retreats and content days and all that kind of stuff. And then I will like do too much and then I'll go back to weddings. And I feel like I'm like kind of in my wedding phase right now. But I still, I just did, I mean, in May, I had a retreat here in Hawaii. That was a lot of fun. It was so good. And then I had one in January in Florida. I had one in St. John in April, I think. Yeah. So yeah, still kind of doing them, but I don't have like any in the future plan just because I didn't really know what life would look like with a newborn and with the baby. So right now I'm kind of focusing on weddings, but I don't see the retreat side ever like fully going away. Like it just I kind of like ebb and flow in my business, and that works really well for me. So yeah, probably someday. And by someday, I would not be surprised if by the end of the year I do something. I am very chaotic in my business, but it works for me.
No, but I love that because it's so refreshing that it's like, it really is like putting your time into what you're passionate about. And like, if there isn't something that's serving you, like isn't something that is like filling up your cup and something that you're wanting to put your time into, then it's okay to pivot. And like, that's why we all became entrepreneurs, is so that we could do something that we like loved to do. And how cool that as a photographer, there's like so many avenues. You can have kind of your fingers in every single little thing, which I absolutely love.
Same. Yeah. It's like the best part about owning a business.
Oh, definitely. And like motherhood ties, I feel like so well into that. And so it's going to be fun to see just like what you do with your business in the next couple of years and what you really like pour into. So that'll be really, really fun. But I feel like the last couple years, TikTok has been on the rise. Social media has been like growing so quickly and exponentially. A lot of people are finding their photographers and wedding vendors and everything via social media or TikTok, or ideas, all circulating. This in the wedding industry has just been heavily soaked into social media. So we just wanted to kind of like start off this episode and dive in to really ask you, how do you keep an authentic style when you're in an industry that not only follows trends, but also pushes them with, social media trends, and all the photographers are doing XYZ, or seeing what other people are doing and feeling like you're needed to go do what they're doing or follow those same footsteps? How do you really like keep that authentic style?
Yeah. This was very hard for me at the beginning. Like, I think just when anybody starts out in photography, you want to do what people around you are doing because that's what, you see other people being successful with it. And so you think that you'll be successful if you kind of like follow in their footsteps. And in the beginning, like the first couple of years of my business, I feel like I fell really heavily into that. And I honestly loved COVID for my business because I think that was the thing that like made me realize what I really liked and what I really didn't like. because obviously I didn't have shoots and stuff that I was doing myself. So, or like booked shoots. So I was only doing like, just fun, creative shoots that I really loved. And that's kind of when I realized like, I'm a beach girl, like, and I love going to the beach. Like all of these shoots that I was setting up were all at the beach. Um, and it was just so refreshing to not just feel like I had to do a shoot because that's what I had booked. And I think that like changes throughout your seasons of your business. Like obviously as you grow and change, your taste and your styles and stuff will grow and change. But as I've grown and like since 2020 and kind of like found my style, honestly, the thing that helped me the most is muting every photographer that I followed. Like, unless I was like really good friends with you or like they were like sharing a lot of their personal stuff, I will always follow your personal page, but photographer pages, I feel like I would just get so caught up in like trends and yeah, like you said, like fads and things like that. And it was really hard to feel like I was like trying to keep up with what other people were doing. Like if I wasn't posting enough reels and like if I wasn't on the TikTok game, like all of that kind of stuff, I had to really separate like my social media because I do love social media. I love scrolling social media. I love, being on TikTok, watching creators and stuff. And I kind of had to separate like the business side of it versus the personal side of it. And so I literally muted every photographer that I followed because I just couldn't, it was like too much for me to feel like I wasn't keeping up with it.
I love that. I love that because
Okay.
I feel like I way, especially in like different seasons. There's seriously like some months where I cannot look at any other creatives' works because I think in like off season, I just feel so bad about myself of like I'm not out there shooting or like I'm not
Yeah.
doing these things or traveling. But I know I will, but like that still like in my brain, I can't justify it because I just think I'm not doing it right now.
Yeah,
So it's
totally.
see.
Yeah. And also just um, like as far as like posting and stuff, like on TikTok, like I was constantly feeling like I need to get on TikTok. I need to like start posting my photography on TikTok. I need to market on TikTok. And I just had no desire to do that at all. And when I
Yeah.
finally just decided, I was like, okay, I already market on Instagram. I already market on Pinterest. Like I have my Google, I have my website, like I have all of these other avenues. Like TikTok will be okay if I don't like post all of my work on TikTok. And I think that it's amazing. And I think that if you enjoy it and stuff, like that's great. I personally don't do any TikToks. I honestly don't really do that many reels anymore either. And that just like really helped me just like separating, like having little buckets for what your life versus your business. Um, so yeah, I feel like that is like the main thing that has helped me stay really true to what I'm shooting and what I'm trying to put out into the world, and also like be conscious of like I'm not just like putting content out there to put content out there. Like I want it to like really attract who I want it to attract, like just being very intentional with what I put out there and also being very intentional with what I consume. Um, because yeah, it either both ends of that can be so overwhelming both for your viewers and also for your own mental health. And I mean, speaking from experience, if you try to do it all, if you try to like hop on every trend, you are going to burn out, and you're going to burn out a lot quicker if you do hop on every trend, because not every trend is for you. And I think that's the cool thing about creatives is like you can make your own trend, you can do some trends, you can not do some trends, and you can just like find what works for you and what doesn't. And honestly, I think that 2020 really helped me kind of get the mindset for that. And I've just really, over the years, I've probably gotten a little dramatic with it. Like the amount that I don't consume is kind of shocking. Like I feel like I'm not super connected to like all of the up and coming photography trends, but I think that like helps my work more, like when I'm shooting and stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Well, and I think like, I don't know, I think of like TikTok and like all the influencers even that I follow is almost like dangerous in my mindset because I'm like, they have all day just to make videos. And I was
Oh,
like, I
yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
They have all day just to push content, like you were saying, of just like having content for just content, where I'm like,
Totally.
my content has to be like specifically niche to what I'm trying to attract. And then I don't have all day to do this, where I'm like, it's so hard with like what you're consuming and like almost like being like overly analytical of like, okay, what am I actually watching? And like, is this going to help me, or is it like mentally hindering my business?
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people think about that.
Yeah, totally. I also think that like TikTok and is like obviously like TikTok is like where the trends are starting. And then Instagram's like a little bit behind. Pinterest, I love Pinterest. I will scroll Pinterest all the time. Like I get my inspo from there, and I feel like it's like even farther behind than TikTok. Like in some like artistic creative ways, it's like way ahead. But as far as just like trends and like things that are like coming in and out so quickly, like I feel like Pinterest isn't really the place for that. So I do love to scroll Pinterest for like inspiration and like to stay kind of like inspired with my work rather than TikTok and Instagram.
Well, and that honestly like kind of ties into the next thing is like, what are a few ways that you feel like you can balance adding like trends and like having those like new fads or trends to shoots or wedding days while still staying true to like your documentary style and your authentic style? Like how would you say you balance those two, or is it more so one versus the other?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely have people. So yeah, like I said, Pinterest is a big place for me. I love scrolling Pinterest. I love, even if I'm not like saving things, I feel like just like seeing photos, like I'll kind of like mentally save them rather than like creating a board and being like, okay, for my next wedding, like I'm going to take a detail shot like this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Like, I think it's more of just like scrolling, like feeling inspired and feeling creative from other people, but not like creating a board, if that makes sense. Like it's like a whole vibe that I'm trying to like just constantly envision and like put myself into, rather than like saving very specific photos and like, you know, very specific reels and sounds and like templates and stuff like that I want to do. It's more of just like, oh, like this cool photo of this palm leaf like inspires me to like, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of hard to explain, but like, yeah, it's more of just like a whole idea rather than saving very specific things. And then I also do still follow people on Instagram that I feel inspired by. I do have two separate Instagram accounts, and my photography one is where I will like follow all the photographers and like all that kind of like, that's like all business. And then my personal is like pretty much all personal stuff. And my photography account is, I don't like scroll it regularly, but it's like the few photos that I do like interact with and stuff, my algorithm knows it. So like when I do go to that explore page or something and I'll see photos that are giving me inspiration and stuff, it's kind of the same as Pinterest, where I'm just like, oh, like I love how this all feels, rather than like this is like exact trends or like whatever that I want to emulate. And honestly, I had like a big phase in my photography where I was just editing how other people edited and stuff. And that's when I really realized like, okay, I do not like editing like this. And I kind of feel like that's the same with some trends. Like, I don't think that motion blur is really a trend. I think that, I mean, it is a trend, but it's like, it's a very long trend. Like, I don't see that going out of style anytime soon. But some of the other things that I see people doing and have done in the past are like very quick trends within like photography and shooting wedding days and stuff. And because I had that like huge editing crisis a few years ago, and I just remembered like, I just wouldn't want, you know, my wedding photos to feel like a trend. So I try to carry that through with my wedding photography. Like when I'm shooting weddings, like I try to be very intentional of like, how can this be as timeless as possible? And like taking photos that are capturing the day and not, like I'm capturing it for an Instagram post or for a trend or, you know, whatever it may be. And I think that content days are great for that kind of stuff. Like you can kind of like see what you like and see what you don't like.
Well, and I feel like too on like wedding days, like you were saying, like you don't want to like have it be trendy, but I feel like sometimes I'll have a bride ask for a specific photo and I'm like, oh, like that's definitely like you in like 10 years, you're going to be like, that was kind of silly. Like that was definitely a trend.
Yeah.
Like people just don't do it animore. And so it's like when I have couples like that, I'm always trying to like also take like, I don't know if it's like a wedding party shot that they're like, oh, I really want this like trendy shot with my wedding party, or like of all my girls holding the bouquets around my face or something.
Yeah.
And then it's like you get that shot, but then also other shots, because I'm like, I'm not going to be the person where they're like, oh, 10 years ago, I wish I hired a different photographer because they were like trendy. Instead, it's like, oh, I just took an extra photo because it was a trendy, So I totally get that.
Yeah. No, that like explains it perfectly. And even just like, I've had some brides where they want to spend so much time just like making transitions for TikTok sounds and stuff.
Wow.
And, that is like totally on them. Like that is, if you want to do that, that is great. But also like, let's just enjoy the day. But I feel like that those brides are like very few and far between. And if they want to do that, that's great. But yeah, it's like you said, it's like, they're not going to look back and be like, I wish I had a different photographer, like. And at the end of the day, that's what it is. Like, I definitely don't, it's like just longevity. I want all of my couples to just, in 50 years showing their grandkids their wedding album and like still being as stoked about their wedding photos as they were on their wedding day.
Definitely. Well, and I feel like, okay, like also kind of tangent. That's why I'm like so glad content creators are becoming like more popular on wedding days, is because then instead of the bride spending like a half hour trying to create one TikTok, the content creator knows exactly what to get, exactly what to do. It takes you like 30 seconds and you're on to like the next thing on your wedding day. Where like if you really want that TikTok, they'll make it happen. But like you don't have to spend all of your time doing it. So
totally.
Yeah.
Well, and I also feel like if they don't have a content creator, like they would constantly be handing their phone to me. Like a couple years ago before like content creators were a thing, and to be like brides would be making a video or something, and it's like, oh, can you film this quick transition for us? And it just like, I don't know. But I agree. Content creators are awesome, and like, that's a great job for them. I could never do it just because there's a lot of work that goes into that. Like creating TikToks is a lot of freaking work.
Seriously, cannot agree more. It's like always like let me go hide under a table so they don't pass me the phone, because like I am not on the trendy stuff with TikTok. With like, I'm not on wedding TikTok. I'm on like a TikTok, random shit like that I save for my husband to watch, and like because he thinks it's hilarious, he doesn't have a TikTok. So I'm like, I'm far removed from the wedding scene on that app. So that's hilarious.
No, totally.
Are you tired of taking on the entire editing workload yourself? Are you tired of staring at a screen for days on end, feeling burnt out and creatively exhausted? Maybe you've been searching for an editing company for months now, but you can't seem to find one that can truly mimic the high-end quality of films you're looking for to deliver to your clients. If this sounds like you, we couldn't be more excited to introduce to you our friends at Wonderlust Videos. Wonderlust Videos is a post-production service for wedding filmmakers with over 10 years of experience and has served over 700 clients to date. Their full team specializes in seamless and high-quality editing for wedding filmmakers who need to take the workload off their shoulders and trust someone to create a high-end edit. As you know, we're incredibly picky about the partners we work with and the tools and resources we recommend to other photographers and filmmakers. With that being said, I myself, Emma, have gone through the process firsthand to use Wonderlust Videos myself and vet their entire process so that I can recommend them to you today with confidence. Wonderlust Videos can edit your highlight films, social media teasers, doc edits, and so much more. Their team edits on Premiere Pro, Final Cut Pro, DaVinci Resolve, so it's time to get the help you need and start outsourcing today. You can start with Wonderlust Videos right now at wonderlust-videos.com and use our code WGY10 for 10% off your first project.
Does your current client delivery system feel unexciting, limiting, and boring? Maybe you're still using good old Google Drive or Dropbox to deliver your clients' wedding films. If the answer to these is yes, it's time to level up your video delivery experience with FitFlow. VidFlow is a pay-per-use online platform that allows you to deliver fully branded websites for each of your clients. While being incredibly affordable, VidFlow is accessible on mobile, desktop, and smart TVs with included long-term hosting so that your clients can truly enjoy the entire experience when receiving their wedding films. When I first found VidFlow, it was such an easy switch that truly benefited my business substantially. With so many incredible features and options for customization and personalization, VidFlow continues to wow my clients time and time again. You can find VidFlow on Instagram or visit their website at vidflow.co. Use our code WGY20 for 20% off a yearly premium membership and level up your client experience today with VidFlow.
Have you ever felt like you might have gotten like a wedding inquiry or a couple reach out to you that you had to turn down because they weren't aligning with your style, or like they were very trendy or fads, or like they wanted something super specific that you're like, oh, that's not how I document or photograph a wedding day?
I feel like my inquiries now are like when I get inquiries like that, I feel like just by my like initial response and my investment guide and stuff, they don't want to book me. Like I have never, I don't know if I've ever turned down a wedding client. I probably have, but not like off the top. Like it's not like a reoccurring thing that I constantly am doing, because I feel like, I mean, one, my Instagram, my photography Instagram, I am not posting trends that often. Like I'm just posting work that I love and work that inspires me, and also work that I want to attract, or once that I want to be attractive to my future clients. And I feel like my investment guide, my the way that I'm talking in my emails and stuff, if somebody came to me and wanted like a very, very trendy style that like I didn't really align with, I feel like they would kind of figure that out just from my investment guide. So I feel like, yeah, a lot of the weddings that I shoot now, actually 100% of the weddings that I shoot are all very aligned with my style and what I, yeah, am like trying to put out there, and also like the couples that I want to attract. And I feel like that's all because of like the language. I just try to stay very true to myself in my emails and also in my investment guide. And, you know, all of our conversations leading up to them booking me is, you know, not me like putting on a show just to book them. And I think that that will help you, like if anybody decides to implement that into their business, that will help you avoid burnout and just have more like mental space. Like when you're shooting weddings and you're like shooting one style this weekend and the next style that weekend. And by style, I don't mean like colors and that kind of stuff. I mean like the kinds of couples that you're wanting to attract, like their attitude, their, you know, the whole vibe of their wedding outside of colors and flowers and all of that kind of stuff. It can be very mentally draining to have to like put on different personalities for those different clients. So if you just stay true to yourself, you over time, it'll take a little bit of time, but you will attract clients that feel the same and like, yeah, that you just vibe really well with. And I feel like I've gotten to that point in my business that I don't really feel like I have to turn away clients, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that like speaks so much to your branding too. And like as you grow in your business and like niching down and like, you know, your branding and like you said, what you're putting out there, like that's the clients that are ultimately going to your website, going through your website, going to your inquiry form, going through that and like contacting you and wanting to work with you.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, branding is like a whole nother thing. I've actually never paid somebody to like do branding for me, which is crazy. But I am working with somebody right now that I'm very excited for, because I feel like I've gotten to that point in like my emails. Like, I just feel like I truly know who I am. But I've always done like my website, all of that kind of stuff on my own. But now I have somebody to like take me. I do feel like branding takes you to the next level, and I'm working on that right now. Like I just was looking at it like right before this podcast interview, which I'm really excited about. But branding, that's a whole nother conversation. But branding to its core is you, and not hiring a designer to like do all of this stuff for you. If you can like really figure out who you are first and then have the brand come, like all of, you know, the colors and the fonts and all of that kind of stuff, don't go look at my website right now. My website is not, you know, it's not the vibe, but yeah.
Well, and I feel like people who don't have a solid branding, it's like easier for them to get caught up in trends because they, like you just said, like they don't know who they are. And so like once you know who you are, you can solidify that branding. But if you don't know who you are and don't have that branding, you're doing all these trends. And so then you're going to like attract couples who are really big into those trends and what's like currently happening, which to me is like almost scary because I'm like, okay, I book my clients out like a decent amount like in advance, like sometimes a year in advance, sometimes 6 months in advance, where it's like, what if then they're like past that trend? And then what if they like regret their decision because they hired me for a trend? Like I just feel like that's such like a funky fine line to be in that, I don't know, it's like kind of scary. And so it like speaks volumes to like having a solid brand.
Yeah, totally. And I think that like finding your brand and like finding who you are like takes so much time. Like I think that, you know, kind of like playing around with trends and seeing what you like and what you don't like is helpful to like finding your brand, but it literally takes so long. Like I feel like the last like 2 years has been me like very slowly like working up like who I really want to be as a photographer. And I feel like the last like year I've really started to find it. And so just know if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, I need to find my brand, like that is not going to happen in the next week. Like it takes a lot of time to like figure out who you are. And and I think that playing around with trends, like just having a good balance of it, of like knowing what's a trend, what's not a trend, seeing what you like, what you don't like is, like can help you kind of find who you are and what you like in the photography world.
What advice for those people who are listening who are like, okay, like I need to figure this out. I need to find my style. I need to find my brand. What would you like say to a wedding creative who's struggling to find their own style or like in a competitive market? What are a few pieces of advice that you might give them?
One is finding inspiration for your work outside of other photographers and out of other, like finding inspiration, just like, you know, going on a walk or, you know, listening to a podcast that might not have anything to do with photography, or, you know, surrounding yourself with people who aren't just like, don't constantly consume yourself with the photography space, because that can just be exhausting and you're never going to find yourself if you're constantly looking at what other people are doing. So just like finding what you love, what you are attracted to, and then how that relates to your photography. So like I said, in 2020, I realized like I'm a beach girl to my core. And that like, since then I've like just really found my style of like photography that is not just at the beach, but always like just like a coastal scene that kind of all kind of gives the same vibe. Like even the wedding that I shot in Paris, like that wasn't anywhere close to a beach, but for some reason, like that still gave me like similar vibes of like warmth and greenery and that kind of stuff. And I know that it's kind of hard to explain, but just like finding inspiration outside of photography that will draw you into your work, like magazines, and I like so much more than just scrolling Pinterest and making a mood board. And also on the flip side of that, I do think that collaborating with other photographers and like, you know, just like talking with them, and by collaborating, I mean like going and getting coffee, hanging out and just chatting. There's so much that you can learn from each other. And like, I don't know, I feel like I see things that my friends do that I love for them, and it like makes so much sense for them and I can fully cheer them on. But at the same time, I know like that is not my thing. And that's like good. Like that's a good place to be, is like when you can look at somebody's work and just, I'm trying to like explain how to get to that point though, like where you can just, like look at somebody's work that you really love and just deciphering like, do I love that because they did that really well? Or do I love that because I feel like I want to do that as well? Does that make sense? I feel like I've asked, does that make sense a million times?
No, but I'm like following it because I was like, I'm even thinking, I'm like, okay, so like seeing somebody's, I think a friend was even telling me this the other day where she's like, I saw this gal's photo and she's like, I just like felt jealous, felt like, oh, I want to do that, blah, blah, blah. And then she's like, and then she had to step aside and look at, okay, would I have wanted to travel the 10 hours to get there? Would I have wanted to do all the email correspondence? Would I wanted to look up and scout the locations and everything? And she's like, no. not
Yeah.
for that one photo. And so it's like, if
Yes.
that's a no, then it's like, that's not you. But if that's
Yeah.
something where you're like, oh, hell yeah, that's like exactly, like, I want to do all that back end stuff, then it's like,
Yeah.
then that is, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think a good example for this with me is Dawn Photo. I think that she is like chef's kiss of all photographers.
Insane.
Like, she just, like, her elopements, it's all, and it is literally a complete 180 of my business. Like, but every time that I see her stuff, I'm like, I love that. Like, that is so cool. That's so good. But then it's like what you said, like, would I want to, make that elopement guide? And I don't really like shooting elopements. I don't shoot very many elopements. I'm more of a wedding person. And so I just, yeah, like you said, when I like really think about it, I'm like, I am not jealous of her. Like, I am so happy for her because she has like fully found her thing. And I love that for her. And I'm not going to try to recreate it just because that inspires me. And like, it inspires me in a different way of like, holy cow, she's found her thing. And like, I want to continue to strive to do that for myself rather than just copy what she does because it works for her. So
yes.
yeah, that's my
love
one
that.
tip. To answer your question, really, like, when you find things that you love, decide if you really love it or if you love it for that person.
I love that. Well, and it's like so crazy how personal our art is. Like, it's not just like, you're not just creating to create things or trends or whatever is like popular. Like, it is so personal. And it's like you even were saying, it's like rooted in things that you love outside of photography. Like, if you're like going on a walk or going and seeing out a new city and you're like in love with the architecture, or if you're, moved to a new home and you're designing your home and like picking out the furnitures and everything, it's like really rooted in all of those like pieces of like, what are you inspired by outside of photo, which I think is so wild to think of because a lot of people are like so business mindset of like, it has to do with my couples or clients or whatnot, when there's so much more to it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally 100% agree with that.
Seriously, thank you so much today for jumping on this episode. Like I said, I know you have so much going on. And so like, we really appreciate you being on here with us. But before we close, I would love to get your Instagram, again, for anybody who's not following you yet, and your website for people to just kind of follow along and see all your work.
Okay. Yes. Everything is just my name. So Beba Vowels, it's bebavowels.com. My photography Instagram is just Beba Vowels Photo. And then my personal Instagram, which is like the Instagram that I'm always on. Like I said earlier, I don't get on my photo Instagram a lot. So I like get on, post, and then I kind of get off. So my regular Instagram is just Beba Vowels. But yeah, this was so much fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Seriously, again, like, we could not have thought of anybody better for this episode. So we appreciate it more than you know. And for everybody, listening, we will see you guys next week on the We Got You podcast. Thanks for listening to another episode of the We Got You podcast. We would absolutely love it if you could take an extra minute to leave us a review and let us know what you think. DM us a screenshot of it and we'll send you a coffee on us. If you want access to an exclusive community, rad freebies, giveaways, and wedding referrals, then join our Facebook group today. Also, if you aren't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure that you're following along on Instagram at WeGotYou_podcast to stay up to date. We'll see you next week on the We Got You podcast.